If you're over 25 and you buy coffee every day, you're probably stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from your future self without realizing it. And no, this isn't one of those stop buying coffee lectures, because the problem isn't the coffee. The problem is what that coffee is quietly doing to your retirement. Let me show you something that feels harmless, but absolutely isn't. A $6 coffee doesn't feel expensive. It doesn't hurt. You don't feel poorer after buying it. But here's the part nobody ever tells you. That $6 isn't really $6. If you buy that coffee every workday, you're not spending pocket change. You're spending over $1,500 a year. And if you did what most people don't do, if you invested that same money instead, something uncomfortable happens. After 30 years, that small habit isn't worth $40,000. It's worth over $170,000. And after 40 years, that single habit quietly grows into more than $500,000. That's not a typo. One habit, over $500,000 gone. And the worst part, coffee isn't even the real problem. This same mistake shows up every time your income goes up, and it's the reason most people make more money but never get any closer to financial freedom. The difference isn't the coffee itself. The difference is compound interest, and it's the most powerful wealth-building tool that exists. But here's what makes this so devastating. You're not just losing the money you spent. You're losing all the money that money would have made for you while you were sleeping, working, and living your life. Every dollar you spend today is actually worth $17 in 40 years if invested properly. That $6 coffee, in retirement terms, you just spent over $100. This phenomenon has a name in the financial world. Experts call it lifestyle creep, and it's silently destroying retirement plans across the country. Research shows that each time people get a raise or promotion, their spending increases to match it almost perfectly. A recent study found that households in the top income bracket now save proportionally less than they did a decade ago. High earners are making more money than ever before, but they're somehow ending up in the same financial position because their lifestyle expenses grew right alongside their paychecks. Think about what happens when someone gets promoted from $75,000 to $90,000 annually. That's $15,000 in extra income. Most people celebrate by upgrading their car, moving to a nicer apartment, or adding premium subscriptions they never had before. Within 6 months, that entire raise has been absorbed into new monthly expenses. They feel like they're living better, but their savings rate hasn't changed at all. In fact, it often gets worse because now they need to maintain this elevated lifestyle permanently. The real damage isn't visible until you calculate the opportunity cost. Let's say someone upgrades their car payment by $300 per month after a promotion. That feels reasonable when you're making more money, but invested over 25 years at 8% annual returns, that $300 monthly difference represents $263,000 in lost retirement wealth. The fancy apartment upgrade that costs an extra $800 per month, that's $576,000 you won't have in 20 years when compound growth is factored in. Financial planners see this pattern constantly with clients who move abroad for retirement, thinking a cheaper country means more spending money. What actually happens is they end up spending more overall because individual purchases feel so affordable. A $5 meal becomes 3 meals out per day instead of 1. A cheap taxi ride turns into taking taxis everywhere instead of occasionally. The frequency of spending explodes, even though each transaction costs less. Many retirees completely blow through their budgets within the first year because they underestimated how those small, frequent purchases would add up in a different currency. The psychology behind this is fascinating and depressing at the same time. When you make a purchase, your brain releases feel-good hormones, including dopamine and serotonin. You get a little chemical reward every time you buy something. This creates a habit loop that's incredibly difficult to break, especially when your income increases and you can afford to buy more things more often. The problem is that this short-term pleasure comes with a massive long-term cost that your brain isn't wired to calculate automatically. Here's what makes lifestyle creep so insidious. It doesn't feel like you're making bad decisions. Each individual upgrade seems perfectly justified. You work hard, you deserve nice things, and you can afford the monthly payment. But financial independence isn't about what you can afford monthly. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice today for exponential growth tomorrow. Every monthly subscription, every upgraded service, every premium option you choose needs to be multiplied by 12 months, then by how many years until retirement, then by the investment returns you're giving up. Most people don't realize they're experiencing lifestyle creep until 5 to 10 years have passed, and they notice they're not hitting any financial goals despite making significantly more money. By that point, they've locked themselves into expensive commitments, the bigger mortgage, the luxury car lease, the private school tuition. These aren't easy expenses to reverse without dramatically changing your lifestyle, which creates tremendous stress and resistance. Consider what your future self would tell you about these choices. Would 65-year-old you thank you for having premium cable for 30 years, or would they rather have an extra $200,000 in retirement savings? Would they be grateful you upgraded to a luxury car every few years, or would they prefer the financial security to retire earlier and travel the world? These aren't hypothetical questions. These are real trade-offs you're making right now, whether you realize it or not. The most successful savers automate their retirement contributions before they see the money in their checking account. If you never see it, you never miss it. Your lifestyle naturally adjusts to your take-home pay after retirement contributions, and you avoid the temptation to spend money that's just sitting there. This is why people who set up automatic transfers to retirement accounts immediately after getting a raise end up significantly wealthier than people who promise themselves they'll save more later. Time is the secret ingredient that makes all of this work. Starting to invest at 25 versus 35 isn't just a 10-year difference. It's the difference between massive compound growth and modest returns. Those extra 10 years at the beginning of your investing timeline are worth more than the last 20 years combined because of how exponentially compound interest works. This is why the latte factor isn't really about coffee. It's about recognizing that small daily decisions compound into life-changing amounts of money over decades. The question isn't whether you can afford your current lifestyle. The question is whether your current lifestyle is worth giving up the retirement you could have had instead.